Welcome, everyone. It is Thursday. And where are we now? It's the 25th of January. Does that make it our last Thursday in January? Yes, it does. And boy, moving along already into the year. Gotta love it. Just three of us this morning so far. We're expecting Gerald. We'll see if he makes it. But we'll jump in with the introductions at this point. Go ahead, Cass.
Yeah, hi. Oh, I see Gerald's just joining us.
That's
Hi
awesome.
there.
I'll start with my intro. I'm Cass J. Henry from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and I am a holistic life mentor. I'm interested in the bigger picture of what makes you you, the mind, the body, and the spirit. I work with clients when they're feeling stuck and they're looking to overcome that self-doubt and manifest their dreams. They might be looking to make changes or start new habits or stop old ones, and I'm here to give a new different perspective. I work with my clients both in person and virtually, and you can find me on catastrophe.com for now.
For now, I love that. You're going to have an announcement very soon. Thank you. Uh, Shelly Ann, go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Afternoon, evening, night, wherever you're from. Thank you for joining. My name is Shelley-Ann Edwards Barron, and I am a gratitude guide and habit coach, which means that I'm obsessed with all things gratitude. I believe that we can live our lives in that blissful state that helps us achieve what we want while still enjoying the process. And what happened with me and what I've noticed with my clients, when we hit 40, it's like life explodes on us and we start noticing all the things that we haven't done, all the things that we want to do, and the list gets longer and longer, and we begin feeling overwhelmed. And so, what I do is to teach my clients how to say it right, which is managing their self talk. And then we learn how to say it loud, which is getting the gratitude out there in the tangible world. And then we look at how to say it always, which is developing that daily habit of gratitude that forms that keystone habit that gives you the foundation to develop other habits that would get you to your destination with joy. Because I think everyone over 40 deserves to pursue their goals with joy. And that's thoroughly important because that's what life is about for me. And so, if you want to hear more about gratitude and conversations about gratitude, I do a live every Thursday morning at 7 Atlantic time. So, that would be probably, I think, 6 Eastern. And a colleague of mine, we talk about gratitude, different ways to implement gratitude in your life and how to make it tangible so that you can find us at gratitude, getting it done with gratitude on YouTube. So that's what you would search for. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Shelly Ann Edwards Barron. I love to have a conversation about gratitude. You can ask all these people here. I can talk about gratitude all day, every day.
Gotta love it. Absolutely. Gerald, joining us just a few minutes late, right in time to do the introduction. Go ahead and tell us who you are and where you're from.
My name is Gerald Alexander. I'm from Glasgow, just outside of Glasgow, Scotland, and I'm a wealth creator and lifestyle coach who helps you focus on what you want. Most people are just drifting through life, with not a sense of purpose or plan, and it's my idea to give you a sense of direction to get some clarity in your future. That's what I do. And
Thank
you
you.
can get a hold of me on here if you contact me here or through my website, and I'll leave my website address in the comments.
Ah, perfect. Absolutely. My name is Stephen B. Henry. My friends call me Steve. I'm a multi niched coach practitioner, a published author, a digital content creator, online presence consultant, business success guide, and personal development mentor. That's a mouthful. I've done a lot of things over the years, and I have a lot of solutions to share with people who need help. I work with men and women who are wanting to start or expand their online presence. I help them get unstuck in their personal and business lives so they can move forward with their own online journey of success. I'm a Canadian living in the US. You can find me at stephenbhenry.com. And as I often say, the time to hire your coach is before you get lost in the woods. And our topic today is checking in with check-ins, and it's kind of a nebulous topic we'll get into, and a lot of great stuff to share today, I think. But checking in is so important uh, in your life with other people, especially if you're working with an accountability partner. There's so many aspects of checking in, as we're going to delve into in the hour today. Cass, why don't you start us off?
Sure, I can do that. Checking in is for both sides of the equation when it comes to, especially with coaching, but any situation. You're looking at creating a space for your client to connect with their thoughts and their feelings and the sensations in their body. And you're looking for them to impart the information on you as a coach so that you can best help them lead the way. And I often talk about the term scaffolding, and checking in is definitely one of those places where the client is the one guiding the way. They're the one letting you know what they need, what's going to come next, and where it's going. And the coach's job is to make sure that they know that, and that they're not leading off in some direction that the coach wants, and that isn't going to necessarily serve the client in that particular session.
Yeah, I like I did a quick search for definition for check-ins, and I kind of like what the Cambridge Dictionary says. To contact someone by making a phone call, short visit, etc. So there are various means, usually in order to make sure there are no problems or to tell them there are no problems. That's the short version of it. And I like the idea of what the check-in is for exactly. So it's really finding out what's going on with the other person, sometimes yourself, to see what are there any issues that we need to deal with. If there are no issues, we still need to check in and say that there are no issues. And that's the part of the definition that I really liked because, sometimes when we think of checking in, we think of checking in if there's an issue or to find out that if there's an issue. But when we perceive there's no issue, sometimes we don't check in. But we need to check in to see that there are no issues as well. So I found that an interesting part of the definition.
When you talk about accountability, last week I go swimming every Wednesday, and last week I had an appointment ahead of time, and I think when I set the appointment, maybe 5 days previously, my accountability buddy, I let them know, hey, I have this appointment. It's out of town. I may or may not be on time, but I'm going to come swimming. And of course, I hit every red light. There was traffic. It was just, by the time I got to the place that we swim at, there was just no point. There was only like 15 minutes left. And I thought, oh, hey, I'll just wait the 15 minutes till my accountability buddy comes out so that I can say hi, give them a hug, and say, thanks, I'll see you next week. And about 10 minutes into that, I was like, man, I really need to use a washroom. I'm going to go home and do that. And I messaged my accountability buddy and I said, hey, sorry, we haven't talked in 5 days. I was going to stop and say hi, but I got to take off. And he messaged me back and said, oh man, is it Wednesday? He wasn't even at the pool. And so checking in is really important. Usually every Tuesday we check in with one another and say, hey, are we still on for tomorrow? And right, like that's really important, that you want to be at the same crossroads at the same time.
Yeah, we're talking here about checking in, but we're also talking about something else that goes with it, obviously, is scheduling and appointments. You when you talk, Shelly Ann, about what it is you're checking in for, well, that's the precursor to it, is having those schedules, having those appointments, having a plan, having a strategy, things that affect their lives. When we talk as coaches, we start often with goal setting. And then from goal setting, we get to strategies and plans and actions. And in order to take actions regularly, you need to have some kind of structure, some kind of process. And in order for any process to work, you can define the program, you can say all these great things you're going to do, but in order to get that process going and keeping it going, you need to check in. You need to connect with whoever you're working with on that process. And if you're doing it alone, and this is what so many solopreneurs do, by definition, they are alone in their business, they wear all the hats, they need to check in with themselves. They need to have some kind of mechanism where they can go and check their calendar, where they can check their notes. They've got to get that process going so that they can be on track and stay on track. And touching base with yourself is not a bad idea from time to time, because you get so caught up in what you're doing. You have to say, whoa, let me take a breath here. Let me think about myself. Let me take a break, get a fresh coffee, check the news, whatever it is that you do that gives you that break. And then before you start back again, look at where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
Check in.
Just earlier today, I was having a chat with someone about being hyper focused, and I get into that really hyper focused, so that if I'm working on something, I sort of block myself out from the rest of the world. Curtains are pulled, the door is closed, and I'm there on my thing, and I'm concentrating, and I could stay that way for hours. And that, of course, is not very healthy, especially doing that seated for hours, no movement, and that kind of thing. So I actually have alarms set on my phone that I would, so like every few, I think I set it for like every 45 minutes to an hour when I'm going to work on something. Yeah. So you should see the list on mine. I have like about 25 different alarms set, and so that's something that you really do get hyper focused and in the zone, but it's really good just for the physical movement to get up and take a walk. And so while I do have bottled water and I have a, large bottle, sometimes I deliberately don't bring it and I use smaller containers so that I have to get up and do a refill when I want, because that sort of gets me into the habit of moving ever so often. So there are lots of little things in terms of making sure that you check in with certain things when you're getting into that hyper focused mode.
Yeah.
Well, you've talked in the past about friction and creating or
Yeah.
removing friction. So, that smaller water option is creating friction so that you have to get up and get it and get up and take that pause and take that movement and then come back and check in. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like that.
I used to have a coffee pot close at hand, and keep your computer close and your coffee pot closer. But I stopped that when I've got a fairly large container for coffee here. It's about two regular mugs worth, and when I need to have a refill, I get up and go out and walk through to the kitchen, and that close enough
Yeah.
for the coffee maker. It works. I've also got a small bar fridge in here. I keep some soda pop and some juice and a few other little things in there. And I used to have it right beside my desk, so I could just reach down, flip the door open, and grab something. I have put a small table in between the desk and the fridge, so I actually have to get up and go take two steps to
Yeah.
open the door.
Yeah.
And putting those little things in as I got comfortable setting into my space here when I first created it, and brought the brick wall in so that we could have a backdrop and so on. I I found myself getting too comfortable, and doing what you said, Shelley Ann, sitting for hours without getting up, without walking. So now, I'll get up from time to time to just look. I go through the living room, out my door here, through the living room to the front door, and look out the window to just see what the weather's doing today or what the traffic is like at this moment. And if it's time for the mail, I'll open the door and go out and check and see if the mail has arrived yet. Sometimes I'll go out and just sit on the porch for 10 minutes and just enjoy the fresh air and the breeze in the neighborhood. And those are all checking in with myself. That's the thing. Besides checking in with clients and with associates and so on, I really feel that checking in with yourself is critical to your ongoing life experience.
Mhm.
I would agree that what you had said there, it's no coaches checking in with themselves, and Cass Kinney touched on that at the beginning. And then Shelley Ann, I think that's a great idea, whereas you've got a timer, because pretty much the timer's keeping us accountable, whereas no, it's our job to help other people, when we're coaching them, be accountable for them. And checking in is really no good communication. Communication is key. And I like the timer part very much, because as you say, it's okay to think about it, but you get caught up in your thought and you're focused, and before you know it, you need something to pull you out of it. So that's kind of going hand in hand with what Steve said about the coach keeping himself accountable. So great idea. I've had several friends who've given me timers and how to set it up in my computer, but I've not got around to it yet.
Yeah, I have mine on my phone because on my computer, I could walk away from that. I needed to be going with me wherever I go.
Yeah, mine's on a
Yeah.
Kindle Fire. And, I used to, when I first started using the alarm function on it, of course, my Kindle Fire was new. I hadn't used it. That particular app was different than other timer apps I'd had or alarm apps. And what I used to do was, if I had something scheduled, I would set the alarm. Excuse me. And I would, when the alarm sounded, I would turn it off and I would delete it. And when something else was scheduled, I would set a new alarm for it. And then I realized that a lot of things I do are repeats, they're regulars. And Thursday morning live open conversations is a regular thing. So I now have my app filled with a list of times that are regular alarm times that I need. And that makes things so much easier. And so my Kindle Fire checks in on me. It's good. And I set those alarms, an appropriate number of minutes ahead of the event, so that depending on what it is, getting set up for this, means coming into StreamYard and connecting back to Facebook and the various things that we do, setting up my description of today's session. All those little things, they take a few minutes. So I backstop the alarm by 10 or 15 minutes to give me the time that I need to do those things. So checking up on your checking up, or checking in on your checking in, is important as well. It's a layered process, and none of these things, as Gerald referenced there, that there's so many things tied together. None of these things are standalone, minutes that are out there that are something that we have to look for and pull in. They are part of our everyday lives, our coaching, our business, whatever it is we're doing, and it's all an integration. And when we start to understand how one thing impacts the other, and again, there's another layer to checking in. When we have aspects of what we're doing that affect other aspects of what we're doing, we sometimes have to check in between those items and make sure that things are going. Not just automations that we may put in to our computer that will automate certain processes. Those, of course, also have to be checked from time to time to be sure that they're working properly. But just things that occur within our normal, daily process. It's very easy sometimes to just assume that things are working as they should, and that other people know what's happening, and
Mhm.
we need to be checking in and make sure so things are running smoothly.
Yeah. And while when you were saying that, it reminded me of the part in that definition I read that really connected with me because, and why it connected. I work from home and I work with my family, and meaning that my husband does part, my daughter does part, and because we're all in the same space and we're regularly around each other, sometimes we don't check in because we see each other every day and we make judgments about, oh, she looks okay, he looks okay, everything seems to be fine, we're getting along, so it's all good. And then we forget to actually check in and make that intentional human connection. So we get into routines quite often with other people, whether colleagues or clients or even, friends. And sometimes we forget to pause and ask, how are you doing? And then listen to the answer. We really do neglect that actual active intentional check-in, and that's something that happened with me until I became intentional about it. And so now I make it a point to check in with each of my daughters and my husband outside of what's happening at work and what's happening with the kids. And how are you doing? How are you coping? How are you responding to the situations that we're facing?
One of the methods that I use with clients is called the SET framework, where SET, S stands for sensation. So this is looking at in your body sensations. What are you feeling right now? And then there's emotion, and that is your emotional. What's coming up the most for you? Are you worried? Are you excited? Those kinds of things. And the last one is thoughts. What's going through your mind? So sensation, emotion, thoughts. Those are the three places that I like to check in around whatever we're checking in about. Whether it's the current topic, whether it's about moving forward to a new topic. How are you feeling gets broken down into that.
Shelley Ann, you used two words there that are so important. The first one, intention, and you intentionally used that several times through what you were saying, um, and acting with intention, checking in with intention, is important. It puts a razor's edge on checking in. That intention carries weight with it. That's important. But another word that kind of slipped by, some people may not have picked up on, and it struck me to be just as important. You said that when you check in with people, you listen to what they say.
Mm.
Listen. And that's something we often don't do. When we're checking in with people, we have some expectations of what they're going to tell us.
Yeah.
And so we check in, and they start talking and to answer our check-in, and we're already thinking about what the next thing is, what we're going to say, what we're going to share. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, let's do this. And you're ready to move on, but they may be struggling. Communication is more than just the words. It's the look on the face. It's the way they're holding their body, the way
And
they're
the tone of voice a lot.
tone. Yep,
Mhm.
exactly. And if we don't listen, and listening is sometimes with the eyes as well, because the message comes as a you said, senses sensation, Cass, and that's we have the you're asking the person what they're feeling and their sensations, but we also take in the output of those sensations. They guide what the communication is. And as we get to know people, we tend first, when we get to know people, we're building upon things that that help us communicate. But then the longer we get to know people, we kind of get into a stasis that we just sort of accept that communication, and we lose the listening, we lose the intention. So those are key words, absolutely key words to what we're doing.
And it doesn't come naturally because, especially for people like me who, there's always an agenda, there's always something to do, there's always a task to complete. So I check in and say, "Hey, how you going? I'm fine. All right, so let's do this now." And
Yeah,
exactly what you said. Let's move on. But what I noticed with my students, especially the younger ones, and the younger ones tend to vocalize it a little bit differently. But when I ask them about how their day was at school, they usually use the routine, yeah, miss, it was fine. But I ask them, I look at the way they answer and I said, okay, that sounds like something exciting happened. I need details. Or if the tone is a little bit somber, I'm like, okay, that didn't sound like everything went well. What happened? And so we start with the typical, and I know there are lots of um I guess there's a lot of advice about what questions to ask instead of how was your day and all those things. But I just typically ask a simple question, but then it causes me to pay attention now to ask a follow-up question that gets the conversation going a little bit more deeply. And students, and they recognize that I am interested in what is actually going on with their day. And I really do want to find out what is happening. And it's not just something that a teacher would do at the beginning of a class. And because I started, and all of this came through lots of reading and trying to figure out how to make things, how to connect with students. And one thing I learned from a parenting book or an article, I can't even remember exactly where it came from now, that I translate into everything, was about if you want to, because it was a parenting book, it was talking about children developing and gaining confidence. So if you want to create a confident child, or you want to grow up a confident child, whenever you see them, whenever they enter the room or enter your space, always show that you're happy to see them. And so what that does is to acknowledge the other person's presence and show joy in that presence. And then the idea and the practice is that they would realize that people are happy to see them and therefore feel confident and worthy of who they are because they're being, met with this kind of reaction. And so I've started doing it with people outside of my family and my classroom, and people see that and they notice it. And it always surprises me, just that second question beyond the hello, how are you, and so on, the second questions. And when I'm asked a question, my kids have such a hilarious thing. Sometimes they ask me, so Miss, how you are doing? So, well, I am tired. I had a long day today. And I just give them like a 30-second, rundown of all kinds of things that is going on with me. And they feel included because we're having a conversation. And those things are critically important when we're talking about checking in, that people feel that there is a conversation happening and you're not just speaking at them so that they can get a chance to speak at you. There's a conversation happening.
yeah,
When we discussed this topic previously, what I wrote down, I think it was Shelly Ann who said this, is that the check-in infuses and informs, and I really like those two words as you're talking about, going deeper from the typical to the specific, and having this infuse into the conversation that's happening. So
Yeah.
it's informing, it's giving you information that's important to have, but it's also developing this connection that you're creating together. I really like that.
Yeah, I need to write that down now.
Yeah. Yeah, you shared it before, but you didn't write it
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
I agree. You said it. I'm like, yes, that is something that I would send. It makes sense. Why didn't I write it down?
I had a mentor at one point, and he was a bit of a wag, used to like to kind of pull your chain a bit to do things. And when he was checking in, he would check up on whether you were listening or not, because he would phrase things a little differently. And if we say, how are you, and we're not really asking for an organ recital as to how they are. We're just kind of saying that in passing as a thing we've learned as a good gesture. And he wouldn't have any of that. He was trying to teach you the idea of intention and listening. And he had many of these things that suited the circumstance, but I can only remember one right now. And it doesn't really, it won't make sense to a lot of people who've grown up in a semi anti-smoking world. But back when, in the 50s and 60s, everybody smoked. Go back and look at movies from the time, and people have cigarettes just as a matter of course, even in the movies where they're not really needing to smoke. But we were coming into a change where people were starting to think that smoking was a bad habit, and besides any health or chemical dependency situations, they were just thinking it was dirty and they didn't want it around. And so he would, when he came into a person's house, if he was coming to meet with a person for the first time, and this is pre-internet, so we didn't do this kinds of the Zoom calls. You met at coffee shops or people's homes, whatever. And if he was walking into a home and they were being introduced and they start the small talk, he would reach to his breast pocket and say, "Do you mind if I don't smoke?" And people would say, "Oh no, we don't allow smoking in the house," or "Oh, I've got an ashtray over here," and they didn't get it. They didn't catch what he was saying because they were so used to the common phrase, "Do you mind if I smoke?" that that extra "don't" in there was overlooked. And he was checking in with people to see if they were listening, if they were really paying attention. And most people, including myself, on the first occurrence of this, would get caught up and realize, hey, we're not paying attention. We're just going with the flow. And so checking in both ways, as Cass said, is so important, because we want to be sure that our student is listening to us. We want to be sure that our coach is listening to us. We want to be sure that we're expressing what we really mean to say, because we often don't. And we want to be sure that even if we are expressing what we mean to say, that who we're saying it to actually interprets the words that we're using the way that we expect they will. And we covered that in a session on conversation or communication. And it is so important that checking in is not only done, but it is done in an informative way, in a communicative way, that you both. I really actually hadn't thought, in preparing for this today, I hadn't thought of the two-way street that's there. I was actually looking at it from both ways, but one at a time. And to how you phrase that at the opening, cast, just to have it be a two-way street, really puts the icing on the cake, so to speak. That's what makes it work. Checking in isn't just checking up on somebody; it's checking in with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I like the term "in sync." Right? You want to be on the same page. You want to be in sync with one another, and the only way, that's a short form for a word, isn't it?
Yeah, it is two words: in sync, in synchronization.
No. The word "sync" Yeah, like synchronize or
Synchronization.
yeah. So you want to be both in the same place. It's the other term I heard is that it's like checking your compass at a crossroads. Are we on the right path? Are we getting to our destination that we want to? Or maybe we've gotten to this crossroads together from the check-in that we had, and we're checking in again, but maybe we want a different destination because of what we've already done, and that's great too. You can always change direction. You can always switch your path if you're checking in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. What was it you said weeks ago about sometimes you want to go on the country road because you want to see the cows?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Gerald, you often share with us this term, and it was in your introduction as well, the sense of direction. And you can't, be sure of your sense of direction unless you're checking in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like milestones, checkpoints is what we're kind
Yeah.
of covering there, and just regrouping. As opposed to just rushing and getting off track. That's the same as like an aeroplane. It's off course 99% of the time, so you've got to keep checking in. Like to put it back on course. So I found it really interesting what Shelley Ann said there about the younger generation. Well, when you're talking to them and how it makes them feel and how important it is how you feel about yourself while you're making that communication. Because if you want to make them more confident, then you've got to come across more confident, and you've got to be really listening and be concerned in the first place. Whereas, no, I think what we're talking about here is just a cheap hi, how you doing, when it doesn't really matter. And when they say, well, that's you're just being nice, and then we've found out before that the word nice derives from being stupid. So pretty much it's like when you're saying to talk, when you're talking, it's more like 2 ears, one mouth. In this country, where I am in Scotland here, people will say, I'll say, how you doing? They'll say, no bad, like not bad. What does that mean?
Well, it
Where
doesn't necessarily mean good, right? It
Yeah,
just means not bad.
exactly.
Yeah.
exactly, like straight away, it's like, whoa, yeah, is it important to me to find out, that this person is no bad? Like, what does that mean? What kind of answer is that? Is that just a response? Like W. Clement Stone, he used to say, if somebody said, "How you doing?" I feel happy, I feel healthy, I feel terrific. You say that to somebody here, and whoa, what's wrong with him? And then
Mm.
just walk on, get the head down again. So it's pretty much checking in with somebody, and maybe it's more like a coach's approach, I would think, or an inspirational, motivational. If you want to take it further than the no bad, are you listening? Are you caring? Does it matter?
Yeah.
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 Cass, you posted something in your group about kindness. I'm trying to remember the
Mhm.
quotation that that really struck me because I think it was about trying to figure out who needed extra kindness and then
Yeah,
realizing
it's not about deciding who needs extra kindness. It's about knowing everyone does.
yeah. And so when Gerald was speaking, that came back to me. And I think I absolutely love that quote because it means living your life being kind to everyone. So we're not necessarily seeking out the destitute or the people who have a bad day to cheer them up. We're recognizing that the people we're meeting every day could be destitute and could be having a hard day, but we don't know because they're hiding it.
Mhm.
And so, if we treat everyone with that level of extra kindness and compassion, then we can be checking in when people need that without even recognizing that there was an actual need beyond just the typical situation.
Well, once again, that's like more with intention,
Hmm.
because a good line for that, no, a good to keep you focused in that one is treat other people as if you were the other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is again. I'm going to emphasize this a second time or third time. It is something that infuses all of the things we do, and it's all intertwined. We want to bring these various things that we've talked about over the weeks, bring them together. We tend to desire to present a single topic in a session, and we find ourselves pulling in other bits and pieces. But that's simply how it is. That's the way it is, folks. Um, you don't live your life one thing at a time.
We're not
What you
siloed.
Right, what we have done and what we desire to do both affect what we are doing in the now. And a lot of people who promote the idea of living in the now, which is probably a good thing, forget about the fact that we have desires and we have history. And both of those things weigh upon what we are choosing to do. And so, although the action happens now in the moment, we need to check in on our past. What is it doing to us? Is it holding us back? Are we afraid to move forward? Are we afraid to act because something in the past has held us back? Or are we not acting because we don't have desires in that area for the future? So we can't ignore, the timeline. We can't ignore the spectrum. We have to look at where we are and how all the rest of it affects us. So checking in isn't just checking in with others or checking in with what we're doing. Uh, it involves a consciousness of all of the intricate parts of what happens. We don't have to list them and name them and realize that but we have to be sensitive to the fact that for us, there's so many aspects of our life. And if we do that, then in essence, we're checking in with other people because we can realize then that they have all of these aspects too. And something from the past is affecting them now. And what desires they have or don't have will be affecting how they pursue things currently. It's,
Another way of saying check in I like is the invitation to reflect.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you are looking back, you are thinking about what's in the past, and you are reflecting on the future. That invitation to really do it justice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, I think you said earlier that if you're checking in, it means that you are checking something. So you need to have some sort of guide, you need to have some sort of goal or some objective for the check-in, and that's why it has to be intentional.
Yeah, I call it purpose. And we
Mhm.
have to have purpose in our life. And we can derive our purpose from what we've done, our history, our experience, our wisdom that we've gained perhaps over the years that can inform our purpose. And then we can institute our purpose by our desires and our uh, dreams and our goals for the future. But purpose is a now thing, and it's intention. Yeah.
Like how you were saying it's intertwined, and how you said you use the word purpose, and checking in is like having a purpose and a plan to fulfill that purpose, and checking in every making a habit of checking in on a
Oh yeah.
daily basis to make sure that you're not off course.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is so easy to get off course. Gerald, you and I have talked about this when we've talked together, but we love the holidays, and especially the year end, the year beginning. We've got Christmas and New Year's kind of back to back over a week, and we have all the plans for Christmas, from starting out with Christmas shopping and decorations, and eventually a Christmas tree set up in many people's homes. They do that, decorations out on the lawn, the porch. Uh, some people go overboard and it's the whole house and yard. And then we experience Christmas, and there might be, just Christmas Day, or there might be 2 or 3 days, 4 days, where we get together with different groups of people and at different people's homes. We have the family to our home. We go to remote a place for a family, and that's just Christmas. And now we're getting into the New Year's and all of the thoughts of what is coming and what the New Year is going to bring. And many people are very serious about setting New Year's resolutions. Fewer are serious about following them through. And we get together again. The New Year's period is uh, an excuse to get together again as family and friends, and maybe go to a game or go to a movie, or watch the games on television. They said they tend to fill the holidays with sports and holiday related movies and music. And so this all gets into our lives. And for 14 days perhaps, or even 21 days, 3 weeks of it overlapping, we have our life changed. We have our routines decimated.
Mm.
And then, by January 5th, we're abandoning our resolutions. We're trying to get back into the flow of things for our normal work, whether it's a job or whether it's a business. And we're struggling to get back on track. We've blown, it takes a certain period of time to set a routine. It takes less time to blow that routine. And that year end, Christmas, New Year's period tends to affect us in a devastating way in many cases. People get up and then they have to start all over again, building the
Yeah.
routines and doing the planning and setting new goals, New Year's resolutions, which are then lost because in the chaos of that time, they don't set them properly. And so, we need to check in after any major event in our life. I mean, I'm just using Christmas, New Year's as an example, but throughout our lives, there are major events that affect us. Buying a new home, losing a job, getting a new job, moving across the country, starting a new life. All of these things that happen through our lives, we have to check in with ourselves and with the others around us that affect what we're doing, and we need to be prepared to make changes. Checking in isn't just a process that we do and then move on. Listen, again, that word, Shelley Ann, listen to what we hear when we're checking in, and then adjust accordingly. Right?
Yeah.
We have to take the results of the check-in and apply them.
I think just as important as checking in is checking out. And I don't mean like being checked out of the situation. I mean the opposite end of the time frame. We've checked in, we've multiple times hopefully checked in over the time frame, but we're coming to an end, and then it's time to check out. Have we accomplished what we set out to accomplish? Did we make the appropriate changes to the destination as we went along? What did we get out of what we've just done, and what are next steps?
Yeah,
And I think that's
evaluation.
yeah, I think that's a very important part of the check-in process, is that we come to that evaluation.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's something that does get overlooked a lot. We sort of fade out. We need to check out. We need to be positive about it.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the fading out. Things just kind of transition and go into. And so as I'm learning more about being intentional, I'm so happy you mentioned that, Cass, because and Stephen corroborated, we don't think about it when we are so focused on a thing and we're not considering the process and the journey and what's happening along the way. We tend to not think about that part of the process and miss that, and it is a very valuable part of the process, because I think that is the part where we celebrate as well, When things go right, we celebrate. And,
Yeah.
when things aren't going according to plan, we adjust and we make the changes and so on. And so celebrating at the end in terms of that checkout process, it wasn't something that I was used to doing. The task is finished, we're done. Okay. I put the check mark, but then that's it. And I move on to the next task without really going through a checkout process. How well did it work? Did I enjoy this? Um, what do I appreciate, and that whole gratitude system. And so for me, when I got into gratitude and looking at being intentional with gratitude, it thoroughly changed my life because it allowed me to pause and appreciate and do an effective check in and check out. And that's why I talk about it so much, and it's become my mantra because of how significant it affected me. And it's been researched and documented that I'm not the only one. Once gratitude is implemented effectively, and there's a whole idea of what that effectiveness is all about, and then there's the journey and all those things, it makes such a huge difference. And that checking out bit, it's a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. A lot of my clients are coaches themselves, and I truly believe that every coach should have a good coach. And it's not so much to teach you what to do. Most coaches, if they get into coaching and they're actually practicing, they've pretty much figured out what to do. They know what the area is that they want to coach. They know about it, and they know what they're going to deliver. What they don't know is the modality. They don't know how to deliver it. I had a coach say to me one time that she had spent a great deal of money on coaches and gurus, and they all shared with her what to do, but none of them shared with her how to do it. And that is a critical aspect of it. That when you're checking in with the how as much as the what. And that's where we say that simple phrase. How are you? How, and it's important that we do that. And coaches struggle. One of the big areas that I work with coaches is process. Coaches struggle with process. And again, I'm not talking about automation. That's a whole other area of it. You can automate the process once you get it going, but developing the process that embodies the things you need to do and puts them into a system. And then a lot of what I do with my clients who are coaches is we check in. On a weekly basis, we check in and we look at where we are. And sometimes that's the reverse. That coach is looking at where I am. How am I doing with what I'm doing for them? And that's important that they understand. And then I'm looking at where they are. How have they progressed along the timeline that we've set? And if not, what do we have to do to pick up the pieces? Because we do that. We drop the pieces sometimes. We drop the ball, as the expression goes, and we have to pick it up again. And it's not so wrong to drop the ball. It'd be nice if we didn't, but if we do, it happens. We accept it. We check in. We find out what's going on, and then we pick it up again and reconfigure. And Cass has talked about the journey and the compass, finding where you are. And sometimes you need to take that detour. You discover that, yeah, this is the direction I want to go, but I can't get there from here. There's too many stumbling blocks in my way, and I can't turn them all into stepping stones. It isn't happening, but I can go around them. I can take this little detour over here, and I can get around them and still move forward and then move back into my path. Gerald used the example of the airplane, and a lot of people don't understand this. When an airplane flies, from Chicago to New York, it doesn't go up into the air, turn and point itself to New York and fly straight there. It has to make legs of the flight are in different directions because it has to deal with other air traffic that's there and go around it, as I just said. And you're dealing with wind, that your direction is here, but the wind is blowing you off track, and so you have to recorrect. So you may be pointing at New York there, but the wind blows you over here, so now you're pointing at New York, over there a little bit. You have to change your direction. You have to adapt to what's happening, what the process is around you. It needs to be there, and that requires conscious checking in from time to time. The airplane doesn't just fly on a predetermined heading and hope it gets there from here. They check in with air traffic control, and air traffic control sees them on radar and sees where they are and vectors them, redirects them to where they need to be going, and deals with the other traffic around them. They call it air traffic control. It's dealing with that traffic. In our lives, we have so much traffic. We're working from home, and our friend drops in because we're at home. And she got the day off work. And so she's going to drop in today to see us because she hasn't seen us for a while. She's checking in. But we have to reciprocate on that check-in and check in with ourselves. Can we take a half-hour break now or only 15 minutes? Can we go out and spend a couple of hours over lunch getting back in touch with each other? Or do we have to just grab a quick snack in the kitchen and chat over coffee, and then I have to get back to work? We have to check in with ourselves, and when other people are checking in with us. So it's a dance. It's a balance.
It's a feedback mechanism, right? Yeah.
I think that's kind of nailed it. What you just said there. Life is a continual dance.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to check in. Are we on step? Is this how the dance is? Is this the dance for the moment, or should we change the way we're dancing? In order to get through this part of the journey.
That is such a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah. Well, and it involves so many things. We have to listen. We have to listen to the music that's playing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because there's the music, there's the DJ, there's a dance floor, there's a dance partner. That is such a beautiful metaphor. I'm glad you picked up on that, Gerald, because it really, that's exactly what it is. And when you started speaking, I thought, oh yeah, whoa, yes.
Well, and you yourself have to try not to step on your partner's feet, and they are trying not to step on your feet. They need to reciprocate, and and all the little nuances too. I remember at our high school with high school dances. They were held in the old gym. We had two gyms. The new gym had a ceramic floor, and it was no good for a dance at all. But the old gym had a hardwood floor, which was a nice place to dance. But the hardwood floor would kind of, it was painted with varnish of some kind, and it was just kind of dull. And they used to have these wax beads, little grains of sand of wax that they would spread out on the floor, just a light dusting across the floor. And those would get crushed onto the surface of the floor by the dancers. And they didn't make the floor slippery so you'd fall down, but they gave it a little bit of give so that you could dance easier. And that's what we want to do in our businesses, in our coaching, in our lives. We want to make things a little bit easier. And so we need that box of fine wax beads that we can throw out on the floor when we deal. And that's part of checking in with what tools are available to make things happen.
Yeah. And I think perfect way to end on that, because if we start anything else, that's a whole other conversation.
Yes. Cass, do you have a topic for next week?
I was at one point thinking self-reflection, but Shelly Ann said celebrate. And I think learning to celebrate yourself is a really important topic that we haven't touched on in any form. So I think celebration or celebrating is our next topic.
Celebration. I love that. You've got to celebrate your wins. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
whole very good topic. So we'll do that for next week. Absolutely. Thank you guys for being here. The four of us get together. I go away from this excited. My day ends up being really good. And for all the people watching this live, thank you very much for coming. I hope we've provided something useful for you, got you thinking, got you getting ready to check in. And for those watching this in replay, thank you for taking the time to look us up and watch through. We appreciate all of you. And remember, you can contact any of us. It's an open conversation, but we're open to conversations with you guys as well. So thank you. Key the music, and we'll be bye-bye for this week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.